The smell of rotting flesh assaulted my olfactory senses, triggering my gag reflex. "Quiet," Rory hissed from beside me. "Gonna wake the whole den before I set the charges," he whispered as he pulled the door closed behind us. We winced as the sound of the rusty door squealed in protest. "You sure this'll work?" I asked for the 100th time. Rory held his pointer finger to his lips, demanding my silence. The manic look reflected in his eyes demanded my obedience. He jutted 2 fingers at me, then towards the rear of the warehouse. I pointed at myself, then at my feet, shaking my head. If we weren't forced into silence, I could properly communicate the finer points of why there is no way in hell I'm volunteering to snake my way through a warehouse of napping lust vampires. The job of planting highly suspect homemade vamp bombs belonged to the craftsman. Pretty sure that's part of an unwritten code of monster hunting. Rory's face scrunched in on itself as though he had sucked all the powder off the world's most sour apple candy. He jabbed his fingers at me, then at the rear of the warehouse. Poofs of snow scattered from his black bomber jacket. I crossed my arms, shaking my head. The dark couldn't hide Rory's face, turning a deep shade of cherry apple red. The tips of his ears looked as though a dragon had engulfed them in flames. His military crop-top head was seconds from exploding into a 5-alarm fire. Instead, he placed a heap of his Rory Special's homemade explosives at his feet. A proprietary blend made of 2 parts, holy water, garlic concentrate, and 2 parts hopium and insanity. He pointed at the grenades, then at me, then all around the exterior walls of the warehouse. I smiled and shot him an enthusiastic thumbs up. Any fool knew that planting the charges along the exterior of the open warehouse was the simple job. As easy as a job taking out a den of lust vampires can get, anyway. Anything was better than putting yourself directly into the middle of the sleeping vamps. The size of the warehouse and den was unusual. Vampires are funny creatures. Not ha-ha, pull my finger funny. More like they murder each other if their dens grow too large funny. For the most part, their dens top out at 6. Any more than that, and the alpha male competition becomes a problem. Of all the variety of vampires, lust vampires are least powerful in terms of raw strength. Even so, any one of them has the strength of 2 healthy men. There's something special about a familial bond. Like the fact that Rory, being my big brother, can easily express his thoughts about my decision-making. Being draped in the dark and silence didn't stop his middle finger and smoldering eyes from communicating exactly what he wanted to say. He shook his head, narrowing his hard brown eyes. He flexed his jaw, storming off in a silent huff. It wasn't fair having Rory at 6'2" of tall, chiseled muscle sneak through the napping vampires. But I'm tired of being the smaller brother. Risking life and limb on the monster ops as Rory busts in clobbering monsters like the Hulk in a roid rage. I scooped up the explosives, wiggling my nose. I padded silently across the open warehouse floor. The sound of every footfall echoed around the sparse open space. Lust vampires were a unique bunch amongst the hidden world of vampires. Though strong by human terms, they were weak compared to your average bloodthirsty vampire roaming the Seattle streets. Probably had something to do with them not drinking blood and feeding off of people's sexual energy instead. It wasn't the most elegant vamp den I had been in, but it wasn't the worst either. Generally, lust vampires amass enough humans to set out on their own. They develop their own harem of human sexual desires to feed on, but they like to start in small groups until they build enough vamp strength to go it alone. I winced as the holy water splashed on my sleeve. "Damn it," I whispered, sniffing at my now drenched arm. The powerful smell of the garlic made my eyes water. Homemade grenades were always the most trustworthy. I shoved an extra into my jacket pocket. I hoped Rory was right about Father Bradley's holy water. In theory, most any religious symbol could lay way a vamp. Magic circles, holy ground, and of course holy water. But in 4 years of running our monster hunter business, we had yet to test the theory. Trapped in a warehouse full of vampires didn't make for the ideal testing environment. Rory and I huddled back together at the front entrance. Rory wrinkled his nose, shaking his head. I pointed to the sleeve of my drenched arm and shrugged. Rory smiled like a manic kid on Christmas as he pulled a detonator out of his black bomber jacket.